Well, hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. Kenny Little is a Scottish singer, songwriter, and guitarist who has fronted the Glasgow band Hollow Horse since 1984. The band has recorded 4 albums worth of material, the latest being 2023's Leaving Without Saying Goodbye. I want to quote Kenny from his email to me about the band. We have been going for over 30 years, but we are completely unknown and ignored in our hometown. We are contemporaries of the BMX Bandits, the Pearl Fishers, Teenage Fan Club, and have stood on the sideline as these and other bands have gained national success. We are the band that time forgot, but yet we rise and continue to produce the best material that we can. In addition to his musical experience, my guest was also a school teacher for 25 years. Hopefully we'll have time to hear a little bit about that part of my guest's life, as well as delve into each of the 4 albums. Well, welcome, Kenny.
Thank you very much, Greg, for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Pleasure to talk to you, and thank you again for taking time out to do this and talk with us today. Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Glasgow in a hospital called Rockhill, I think it's called, which is now gone. They knocked it down. I was born in 1958, so I'm 65 years old.
Okay.
Although I haven't lost any of my boyish good looks. I've been so blessed.
There you go.
You look that as well, Greg. Aren't we so lucky?
That's right. That's right. I don't know what mirrors we're looking into, but we'll go with that. We'll go with that. We'll talk about some fond childhood memories growing up.
My earliest memory, I knew you might ask this question. My earliest memory is seeing my own reflection in the pedals of the family piano.
Is that
They're
right?
made of brass, and because the feet have been playing, the pedals become highly polished, like a mirror. You can see yourself. So as a kid, I see myself in the pedals of the piano, and I could just about touch the keys. Right, so it must have been, I couldn't stand, I could just about touch the keys. My next memory is my dad breaking the piano up with a big axe, because it was in the early 60s and it was the rise of television. So families no longer needed family pianos, and what you would do is just break them up and throw them out. So at one time in my life, all over Glasgow, there were broken pianos.
Is that right?
And even as a kid, even as a tiny baby, seeing myself, I wanted to play it. I was I was so interested in music, even from being a tot.
Yeah.
But it was denied me quite a large part of my life, because my family were non-musical. I mean, you've had other guests on, they talk about, my uncle was a great singer, and I had none of that. We had no music at all.
Is that right?
We had 2 albums. My grandfather bought us a Dansette record player. You know what an old Dansette is?
Yes.
Well, at the end of, I'll bring this out. At the end track on that, which is the album, you'll hear it clicking on. The last song is called Never Try to Trick Me with a Kiss, and we sampled the sound of the old Dansette record player starting, and you hear the record falling, and you hear the arm going over and on like an old record player.
Yeah, right.
So as a kid, that's the only 2 albums. The only 2 albums we had were Andy Stewart's Greatest Hits. Andy Stewart is a Scottish Donald, Where's Your Trousers? Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low, off to sky and away we go. That and a Val Doonican, who's an Irish singer. He used to have a TV program, used to wear cardigans and sit in a rocking chair and sing. It was a TV program. That was, what chance did I have with Andy Stewart and Val Doonican? None whatsoever.
Right. Yes.
But my brother, I think it's in 1963, got I Feel Fine by the Beatles, the single. And the minute I heard that,
Yeah, your antennas went up.
It just absolutely, and I've never lost it. That absolutely captivated. That's my favourite Beatles song.
Yes.
Boom, meow, dun, dun, diddle, diddle, diddle. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's fantastic then, and it's fantastic now.
It's still, yeah.
Now,
Just,
I
yeah,
must
it's,
inform
go
you,
ahead.
I have a tendency to talk. So
That's all
when you
right.
have to, it might take
That's
about
what
3 hours.
that's quite all right. That's what we're here for. To hear your story. That's right.
In
Well,
primary school,
yeah. we-
this woman absolutely changed my life.
Yes,
In
tell
primary
that
school,
story. Yeah.
she
Yes.
used to sit on big high stools,
Uh-huh.
right? A big high stool, on a big high desk. And she took her keys off the big high desk, opened the cupboard, and brought out a wee blue box. Inside the wee blue box was a ukulele. And
Oh,
she put the kids in a semicircle and she
uh-huh.
sang us way down upon the Swanee River, way down the border.
Yeah,
Then, right, my tenor was ready. Then
you're
she
right.
gave the ukulele to the first kid and passed it to the second one who had a wee try. When it got to me, it went no further. I refused to give it up. She
Yes.
would, and she didn't stop me. Every single day in my last year of primary school, I would take the key off her desk and I'm watching her and she's watching me. And I would open, bring out the wee blue box, and I sat at my wee table and I taught myself how to play the ukulele all the way through the last year of primary. The woman absolutely changed my life, without a
Isn't that
doubt.
something?
Without
Isn't that something
her, she was the key to getting started.
to get
Without,
started? Yeah.
without, without
Well,
way down
you know,
Swanee,
that
sorry,
wouldn't have, yeah, you may not be where you are today or
I
have
wouldn't
had
be
those
where I am today
experiences.
without
Yeah.
her.
Well,
Her daughter,
it's interesting you talked about the ukulele because several that I've interviewed have said that's how they started out,
yeah.
playing the ukulele.
I
It was,
felt
yeah,
I
go ahead.
felt as if the ukulele was mine, and
Yeah.
now it's very, very popular.
Uh,
Every music shop in Glasgow has got ukuleles for sale, and everybody's bought one and everybody plays. But it was mine. It was my ukulele.
right. It was your personal
I
one.
somehow, every ukulele is mine. Thanks to this woman.
Right. You claim ownership, don't you? Yeah. Well, was that the first musical instrument you learned how to play?
Yeah,
Ukulele?
yeah.
All right. All right.
Learning instruments has become my hobby.
Okay.
When we
Okay.
were recording, and we would pay somebody to come and play saxophone on the record, then started to think to myself, I wonder if I could play the saxophone. Here, what have you got? Craigslist in America is you can
Yes.
buy second-hand stuff. We've got, it's called Gumtree, is our one.
Okay.
And on Gumtree, I spotted a tenor saxophone. So I bought it and taught myself how to play. Then I bought an alto, then a soprano, then a trumpet, a trombone, flute, an accordion, a banjo, a mandolin, a violin, a viola, and a cello. And I can now play all of these instruments. I can't play them, but I can get a tune out of them.
Yeah.
When we record and you put down if you solo the trumpet part, you go, what is that? That sounds absolutely.
By
But
itself. Yeah.
yeah, but when you put the rest on, you put the saxophone on the trombone, it sounds like a brass section.
Uh-huh.
It's really convincing as a brass section.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're
that's my
right.
hobby.
You're right.
Learning.
Well, was it easier to go to learn those wind instruments once you had kind of picked up the guitar or the ukulele, the strums, learned the keys? Was it
Yeah,
easier? Yeah.
it's
Okay.
what. Yeah, once you learn one instrument fairly well, you
Yeah.
can apply what you've learned to other instruments.
Right.
You know, the fingering on a saxophone is the same as the fingering on a flute.
Right.
So you can play one, you can almost certainly play another one. And if you can
Yes.
play a violin, a cello is just a big violin, really.
Uh-huh. You did.
It's
You're
two,
right.
it's just the same sort of fingering.
Yes. Yes. You're right. Well, how about you said you got the bug after the Beatles, hit the scene. What
Yeah.
about some other bands or musicians that you got into early on?
When I was I must have been 13. My big brother took me to see David Bowie, at the,
Ah,
and it wasn't at the Apollo. It's the same. It was the same building. It used to be called Green's Playhouse, and it was
okay.
David Bowie appearing at Green's Playhouse. The ticket was $1. Pound.
Oh,
One. There was three bands on. I think there was a band called Fumble, who were a 1950s revivalist, sort of Jerry Lee Lewis type.
yeah,
Steel
yeah.
Wheel were second on the bill,
Oh, yeah, Jerry
which is
Rafferty.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then the lights dim and they play the music to A Clockwork Orange, the Beethoven's,
Yeah.
do,
Uh-huh.
do, 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 the Ode to Joy, do, 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 do. And it goes on for ages. And we're looking at each other going, he's not here. And this apparition appears on it was mind blowing. I've got
Yeah.
absolutely 100% clear photographic images of David Bowie on the stage when I was 13. It was amazing. Another life changing event. When he died in 2016, I happened to be in the Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum. There's a big organ, and every day at 1 o'clock they have an organ recital.
Uh-huh.
And a guy comes out and gives you a wee leaflet that tells you what they're going to play that day. It lasts about half an hour. It's supposed to be a tune called Kelvingrove, was what it was meant to play, but he played Life on Mars instead.
Oh,
You can see if you look for YouTube videos of it, you can find Life on Mars at the big organ in Kelvin, and I was in the audience. You will recognise me because I'm the one on the ground crying. David Bowie said.
quite emotional.
It was, and you would think that Life on Mars had been written for that organ. It was just
Yeah.
absolutely stunning.
Oh, very appropriate for that at that time. Wow.
Kelvingrove's a great gallery. It's a tremendous collection. Really great, some great art.
Yeah. Wow.
If you've
I
ever been to
never got
Glasgow,
never got to see David. Never got to see him live.
no,
That's
I
that's
saw
what.
him twice.
Oh,
It was amazing. When I started working, I left school when I was 16. And what I used to do, all your friends would meet up the town on a Friday night later on. What I used to do was I buy tickets for the Apollo months in advance, no matter who was on.
oh,
Just so
okay.
I would go to a concert because you could afford to do that then. I would go
Uh,
to a concert every single week, no matter who was playing. I
right.
saw Leonard Skinner, I saw Neil Sedaka, I saw Television, I saw Blondie, I saw the Rolling Stones, I saw Paul McCartney, all on a Friday night before you would go out drinking with your pals on a Friday night.
Right.
You couldn't, because the tickets were only £1 or £2 then. Now, if you were
Oh,
going to see hundreds of pounds, that's
I
why
know.
I've not been to a concert for years because you just
No.
can't do it.
It's ridiculous the price of them now, and you have
I
to
know
like
why,
you take out a loan to go to a concert.
I know why they do it because there is no money to be made from selling CDs anymore.
Right.
That is
Right.
why all your major artists like Neil Young, Bob Dylan are all selling off their back catalogue.
That's right. That's right.
550 million because they want the final big payout because they know they're never going to get it from record sales.
No.
You just
No.
don't get it. And the only way they can earn their money now is from merchandise and t-shirts and hiking up the price of the ticket.
That's right. Because streaming doesn't do it. It's
It
just
doesn't do it.
it's piddly that you make it. Yeah. Yeah.
We sell via, we were trying to sell via CD Baby,
Uh-huh.
right? What they give you as an artist on CD Baby is 0.0012 of a cent.
Mm. Mm.
So you would have to sell thousands and thousands of. We have sold 300,000 tracks on CD Baby, and we've earned $500.
That's ridiculous.
100,000. There was somebody pointed out it was Wally Salem. Have you ever heard of Wally? Wally Salem is from Canada. The Beautiful Music is a music label that he runs.
Okay. No, I haven't. No. No.
Oh, he's a lovely guy. He was the guy. As I say, we are the band that time forgot. We've been absolutely, totally, 100% ignored for 30 years. Why would that be? Tell you why. It's just luck. It's luck. That's all it was.
Yeah.
We played all the same venues as all the famous Glasgow bands at the same time. There was the famous one was called The Fix in Miller Street, which is up the middle of Glasgow city centre. Everybody played it. Wet, 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 Hue and Cry, Deacon Blue, Pearl
Deacon,
Fish.
yeah,
Everybody played it. They
Yeah.
all played it. We were playing it too. And I stood on it. At that point, the laser beams were on, the focus was on Glasgow. All you had to do was have a Glasgow accent and you were getting signed up.
Yeah.
That's all it took. If you said you were a band for Glasgow, like Liverpool was in the 60s.
Yes, right.
They were the Beatles were the trailblazers, but all the other bands at their wake all get signed up to it, and eventually all get dropped because they were all rank rotten, obviously, most of them.
Right. Yeah, and that started earlier on with the postcard label too.
That's right.
And the orange juices and the fire
They
engines.
were the independent label. Where they were playing was a place called the Bungalow Bar, which was in Paisley, which is just outside the Glasgow city border. That's where all the postcard bands came from. All the Fix bands, all the Glasgow ones, were Hue and Cry, Wet, 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 Deacon Blue. There was loads and loads of them, and they all get signed up, but we didn't.
Yeah.
And what do you do when you don't get? What do? You don't get signed. You just I'll tell you what you do. You just keep carrying on as we've been doing for 30 years. And there's a guy called Steve. Oh, what's his name? Steve. I might be saying it wrong. Steve Schnee, I think his name is.
How do you spell that, Steve?
Schee. Schnee. Is that it?
Okay. That doesn't ring a bell.
Oh, lovely guy. And he played one of the tracks off of this. And Wally Salem heard it, got in touch with Steve, and asked him for my email address. So I sent him on. And now we're getting played nearly on a weekly basis in America, which for me it's small fry. It's nothing really. But to me, it means such a big deal because we've been absolutely, totally ignored. Not one single radio play. We put out 4 albums and not one single. Douglas T. Stewart talks about being outsiders. Aye, really? You think so? We're outsiders. We're outside the outsiders. That's
Right. He's inside the house. You're outside. Yeah,
we're outside.
Right.
We're looking at the windy, trying to get a windy is the Glasgow name for a window. We're outside looking in the windy, trying to get in.
Right. Yeah, it is so, you're right. It is so much about timing and luck, like you said. It has so much to be with being in the right place at the right time. And oh yeah, I know. I've doing this, I've talked to so many artists that they banging on doors and closed doors, never get a response.
Yeah.
And then a few of them, I would have to say the minority, it just fell in their lap, and it's just like, how does this happen? It's hard to explain, like you said, it really is, and not that they're more talented or any better than the bands that didn't get
I never lost faith. I still think our big break is going to come, and I'm 65 and probably nearer to death.
but like you have to do it.
That's right,
because it's who you are. It's your essence. It's the music.
Exactly right. I do it because I have to do it.
Right.
Because I can't stop.
Right.
Really, I would if I could, because it's been a harsh mistress. It's been very cruel to watch everybody going on and having success and to be totally ignored. But you just carry on because you have to do it. It's what makes you who you are.
That's right. I'm not a musician. I never have been, but I can relate. I can definitely understand that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where I would be without the music that I've collected and the music that I love, so much. I don't know what life would be, really.
Exactly.
Without music,
I asked one of my friends who was at art school with me. could you live without art, or could you live without music? You can only pick one. You can either have art or music. And if you pick music, you'll never see another painting as long as you live. And if you pick art, you'll never hear any more music, including birdsong. And right, and he picked art, which to me is completely alien. Even though I'm an artist, I would still always go with music.
Right.
And my argument to him was, name me a painting that has made you cry, but I could name you a dozen pieces of music that make me cry and still make me cry, no matter how many times I've heard them.
That's very true. That's very true. And I consider it the highest art form. I really do. And I know I'm biased.
It's like your life's blood. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
I think about music. I try and write every single day of my life. I listen to music every single day of my life.
Right. Yeah. Very true. Very true. It has to.
And it's not narrow. I listen to absolutely everything: classical, jazz, country music, pop music, rock music. There's something there for everybody.
Very true. I had a friend he's passed away now, but he was always more into the lyric. And I said, well, what about classical music? There's a lot of music out there, or just instrumentals with no lyrics. You can appreciate that just as much. I don't have to really understand a lot of, let's say French, Italian music or what have you, foreign, to appreciate. Right. It's a bonus. It's a bonus if you know the lyrics, let's say, but I can still appreciate it. Well, let's get into the albums, because what I like to do is kind of mention my favorites, and then to get your 2 cents, or get maybe the backstory or the inspiration and that kind of thing about the songs, behind the songs. Tell us first the origin of the name, Hollow Horse.
The origin of the name. There is a Second World War movie called Stalag 17.
Yes.
Yeah. It's for the 1950s, I think. And in the film, there is a spy in the in the camp, the prisoner of war camp, a German spy in with the camp. And the way that he translates his messages to the Germans about what's going on inside the hut is he lowers the light over a chess piece. And that's the indication to the Germans that there's a wee message inside one of the pieces. And I always thought it was the horse. Yes. And that's why we've got, you can see it, that's why we've got the wee horse.
Yes.
Hollow, because I thought that it was a hollow horse, but it turns out not to be that at all. It was the queen, the king of the queen, I think it was the queen actually, that was putting the wee messages in, screwing it shut and bringing the light down. So,
yes.
That was the idea, was the hollow horse, and it also comes from the Trojan horse.
Right. I was going to say, yeah. Right.
That you let the songs into your heart, but you don't know what the songs are all about, because some of the material is actually very, very dark, but it's disguised as a pop song, and folk don't understand it.
Yeah.
They don't get the true meaning of the song.
Right.
So it's the Trojan horse, and I thought it's the way that you relay your messages, the hollow horse. But there was a band called China Crisis had released an album, Diary of a Hollow Horse, but we were Hollow Horse way before them. And Ian McNabb from the Icicle Works has got a song called Hollow, and we had absolutely nothing to do with him either.
Right.
We were Hollow Horse before they decided.
Yeah. I also talked to Ian McNabb too. I don't know if you saw that one, but yes, yeah. But you're right. You were prior to both of those.
It turns out that Brian McNeil, the guy who produced all 4 of the records, was in China Crisis.
Yes, a keyboard player. Yeah.
Oh, he's such a lovely guy. I've got so much time for him. He's one of our best friends now, just from getting to know him. And I've told Brian this a couple of weeks ago. There's certain people you meet in life, and they have a life force. That energy that you give it. That's what Brian's like.
Yes.
And I went, I want him as my friend. Right. All I was doing, we were paying him to record. So it was just, we were in recording with him now. I want him as my friend. So I would go and visit him I would buy him I'd been a lover. I would buy him gifts, sweeties and flowers, just to become his friend. Because he's an amazing guy. He's the best musician I've ever heard. He's fantastic. Really fantastic. And China Crisis, I felt as if they lost their edge when Brian left.
Yeah, I have to agree with you too. China Crisis has always been one of my favorite bands, but yeah, I think they did at that point. You're right. Well, that's what was my question. My question was how you came to work with him. Yeah,
well, Brian has worked with everybody. He's met David. I've been to see David Bowie live, but Brian has met him and socialised with him. He knows everybody. That's somebody you should get on as an interview because Brian is fantastic.
Yeah, I would love to. Maybe you could put in a good word for me, but
honestly, he's a fascinating guy and he's a brilliant producer and a great keyboard player. And I now consider him an essential part of the band, an intrinsic part of the band.
Yes.
Really, yes. I wouldn't record with anybody else. If Brian stops, well, we're stopping too. I wouldn't want to record because we would never get it. We just wouldn't get it, It's
you
great.
Wouldn't get the sound that you wanted. You wouldn't get the whole product. Well, I was going to say you started out as a 8-piece and then you pared down to the 4-piece.
Originally, that's what we were doing. We were a gigging 8-piece solid working band, rehearsing every week, gigging every week, trying to get signed up. And I suddenly realised it was a treadmill. We were going round and round and round and round, the same venues, and I pulled the plug on it. I said to everybody, we are wasting our time doing this because we're getting nowhere. And the focus had shifted away because it was the start of Britpop. And the focus of the music industry had moved from Glasgow down to Manchester.
Yeah.
With the Britpop, with Oasis and all that sort of carry on. All those bands like that.
Yeah.
So what I said was, let's stop gigging and invest some money and we'll record. We'll try and do the best recording that we can. And that's how we came up with 5 years. 5 Year Diary was the first release. Actually, you might get it and you'll understand it when I explain it to you, but some people won't. That each record has a wee quote from the one before it. Right? So on a 5 Year Diary, the first one is there's a song called Little Dove Hill.
Yes.
Yeah. In Glasgow city centre, a certain part of the city centre, right beside the gallows where they used to hang people. The gallows, it's called Gallowgate, it's still there, but it's not Gallowgate Street or Gallowgate Road, it's just called Gallowgate. And there's a street that goes down to the right, it's called Salt Market, not Salt Market Road, Salt Market Avenue, Salt Market. And there's one called Spoutmouth, and there's one called Great Dove Hill, and there's one called Little Dove Hill. And it's a famous market in Glasgow called the Barras Market. Because it used to be big barras that they put out stuff for traders to sell, and eventually built big sheds. Everybody in Glasgow knows it as the Barras, Barra, the Barras, the Glasgow Barras. It's now sadly they're taking the whole thing apart now. It's all going up market, prime land in the city centre that they want back, so they're doing it all in. I was up there one Sunday afternoon and like it's going to pour at your place just now, thunder, lightning, and I hid in a doorway and I looked up at the street name and it was Little Dove Hill and I thought, that's a great title for a song.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's called the Streets of Beggarstown gets a mention in Little Dove Hill. Can't remember.
Yes, you're right.
It's true.
I thought that was very unique. Yeah, there you go. See that I thought that was the cover. I thought that was the album cover. I want to thank you again, Kenny, for sending me those.
You're welcome.
I've enjoyed listening to those, and
thank you for listening to them. For goodness sake.
Oh, for sure. And I have to kind of scratch my head a little bit too and say I don't know why you guys weren't a little more well known or got the exposure that I think you deserved or you should have. But maybe with a little bit, maybe this can help a little bit. You never know. And that's what I'm about is giving that exposure and kind of helping water and nurture some of those artists that didn't that kind of flew under the radar. that didn't want to fly under the radar, you know, and
What,
they give us,
what we,
yeah,
we don't have any photographs on
yeah,
we've got a Facebook page with no photographs of ourselves. I
yeah,
can't stand that. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and you see bands showing they're my age, but they're showing photographs of themselves from 30 years ago.
Right,
Oh,
right.
show me your baldy head. Let me see your
Yeah,
baldy head. I don't want to see yourself with hair from 30 years ago.
no. I'm surprised. I've had a few like that. Even their Facebook picture is old, and then when I see them, did I get the right person? Any- anyway, anyway, well, first album, it wasn't released until many years later because you guys started out 84 and then it was released in
Yeah,
2003.
we had just what we had before that were just rubbish demos that were never any good, you know.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you why. Because we didn't have a Brian McNeil. Because you would go into a recording studio and your guitar would be slightly out of tune, and as a producer they would say, "Oh, your guitar's out of tune. You have to tune it before." They never did. So you always ended up with really rank rotten demos.
Right.
Yeah, actually, I think some of the songs were still okay, but they were just so badly recorded. And it's only when we start again back to Brian, he went, "No, no, no, you've got to tune up." And absolutely after every take, tune up again. Just make sure get everything as good as you possibly can. That's what we aim for within the budget restraints.
Right. Right. So he was very instrumental in all of the
Definitely,
albums. Yeah.
absolutely. I can't sing the guy's praises either.
Well, let me ask you about the title, 5 Year Diary. Were the songs collected or written over a 5 year
Yeah,
period?
that's basically what it was. It was an accumulation of all the songs that I'd written over 5 years.
Okay.
I've, I- I'm, I've written about 200 songs. Out of those 200, I only rate about maybe 5 or 6 of them. So for 200 songs, we've got five or six that I think are any good, that I would stand by. That I think you could stand
Yeah.
them against any song and it will still stand up. But they're very few. Only 5 out of 200.
Yeah. That you would be proud to stand behind and
Be
yeah.
proud of. Some of them I'm still very proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, are there any thoughts about maybe reworking or re-recording some of the older material that never
There's
was?
a possibility. There's one or two that are still quite nice that I'm working on just now because of the interest that we've had since we released Leaving Without Saying Goodbye.
Yeah.
I'm keen to get back into the studio again and try and follow up with new material. So I'm feverishly working away on new stuff just now. If we get to about maybe 10 tracks, I'm going to book Brian's studio again and start again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I really don't know how I missed you guys. I don't know because I'm heavily into music from the UK. I'm an Anglophile. I'll be the first to admit it. I think I told you that. But you know, I don't know how I overlooked or how I didn't hear. Well, you mentioned it. You said you weren't getting play. You weren't getting
Couldn't
airplay.
get played. We were just absolutely ignored.
Yeah, yeah. So it's hard to hear that and pick up on those, I guess. Well, I wanted to again, like I mentioned, talk about a few of the songs, and
You're
then
fine.
get your inspiration backstory. One Day has that soulful sound that reminds me of Paul Weller. I know people have said that your songs and some of them remind them of Paul Weller. Style Council and Big Sound Authority, another band that I really like. And Paul was very instrumental in forming that band, as
We get,
well.
we get compared to Paul Weller. We get compared to Prefab Sprout,
Yeah,
XTC,
yeah,
bands of that ilk. And I
yeah,
can tell you why. It's not that those bands have influenced me. It's because I'm the same age as them. I listened to the same music that Paul Weller listened to, the same
yeah.
music that Andy Partridge listened. That's what it is. Not that I've copied them, but I've copied the guy that came before them.
Right, right.
That's truth. I
Exactly.
stopped having influence. I was worried that you would ask me who are your influences. I stopped
Yeah,
having influences when I was a teenager
yeah,
because I couldn't compete.
yeah.
I can't write like John Lennon or Paul McCartney. I just can't do it. As I thought, well, the only person I can write like is myself, so
Yeah.
you'd be better just concentrate.
Right.
And
Well,
I'm never going to be.
it's a detriment, I think, for someone to do that, to like, try to write, like you said, too much like someone else. Then it starts sounding, too much, you know, like that. And again, you have to, and that's probably a lot to do with confidence, building that confidence too, as a songwriter, and say, okay, I can do it. I have to rely on my instincts
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah.
It's,
So,
recognizing your own strengths. I
right,
realized that I was never going to be a musician in terms of I was never going to play like Eric Clapton or be a fantastic guitar. All I could do is strum a few chords and write a few songs. I thought that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep doing do what, as the song says, do what you do best.
right. Very true.
That's
Very true. Well, I guess the second track, "Soft Place to Fall," is another fine track with a nod to Paul Weller.
yeah.
I can hear him singing that one. I could hear him doing that.
Nice. Thank you for
Yeah,
saying that. I take that as a huge compliment.
yeah. Oh, he's always been one of my favorites too. And in listening to your vocals, I don't know if you've heard this before, but maybe it's the way you enunciate, especially at the end of a line, where you kind of carry that note a little bit, an extra bar. It reminds me of Pat Denizio. Do you remember the Smithereens, the band the Smithereens?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, he passed away, but the New Jersey band Blood and Roses, "A Girl Like You," "Behind the Wall of Sleep." Go back and listen to some of his, and the way you both kind of,
This,
carry your words.
this is
And
strange because
it wasn't intentional on either side. I know that.
because my wife said to me last week, without a word of a lie,
Uh-huh.
why do you keep holding that last note for too long?
She did, huh?
I'm writing new material and I'm singing that. Listen to this, darling. What do you think? Why do you hold that note too long at the end?
But to me, it's not too long. It's what makes you you. And Pat from the Smithereens did the same kind of thing. But after this, when you have time, go and listen to some of the
Definitely.
go listen to some of their songs. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. But you mentioned a little bit earlier, "Little Dove Hill." I like the feel, the whole mood of that track.
Yeah.
It's got kind of an aching and kind of a longing. It's a really nice track.
I like that one too myself.
Yeah, yeah. And you said you happened to be there and look up.
Yeah, up at the side. I'll send you a photograph of the street and let you see it. It's a
Okay.
tiny wee street. It's a wee
Mhm.
street and up beside the Barrowland where
Yeah,
the famous venue is. It's just down for the Barrowland, about 100 yards. There's
yeah,
Great Dove Hill, Little Dove Hill, Spoutmouth, Salt Market, and Gallowgate.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, please do. And then I like the message in "I Never Learned to Hide What's Good." I really like.
I'll explain that one to you. There's a English writer called Jeanette Winterson, and she'd written a book called Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit.
Okay.
It's a famous book, and the BBC made it into a TV series. It's about her mother was a religious maniac and kept the girl down. It's based on her Jeanette Winterson's true story, and it turns out that she was gay, so she had to suppress that. And that's one of the lines from the TV program, and it's in the book. She says, "I'll never learn to hide what's good." And again, the old songwriter intent. That's such a great line. I never
Yeah,
learn to hide what's good.
yeah,
You see, how do you write a song? Honestly, I have no idea how you do it.
yeah.
You have all sorts of theories about you can get a title or a chord sequence. I have no idea. I just don't know how I do it, and I've never questioned how I do it.
Yeah.
I just accept that I can do it, and
Yeah.
that's what you do. And that was one of the ones where it was basically handed to me on a plate. I'd never learned to hide what's good.
Yeah.
Go write it. Many years ago, just as I started teaching, the smoke alarm in the house started to chirrup at 5 o'clock in the morning. not because there was a fire, because it needed the battery changed. And
Yeah, we have that. Yeah.
my wife wakes me up and says, the smoke alarm's chirruping. You'll have to change the battery. This is 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
Right, okay. Down the stairs, I get the ladder, went up 2 steps,
Oh,
fell off and shattered my knee, shattered the tibia, which the two big bones meet together, and the bottom one smashed against the top one and completely shattered it. And I had to put 2 steel pins into my leg, and I had a full cast on right down my leg with a hinge in the middle. I was off school for 6 months when I was working. Lying in bed one night just before Christmas, a poem came to me, absolutely, completely and utterly finished. All I had to do was write it down. Jennifer and the Christmas Crocodile, it was called. Just handed to me. And over the last 20 years, I've now written 90 Jennifer poems of this wee character that just come to me. I don't sit down to write them. I don't have to work at them.
Right.
They just come to me. And
that was going to be one of my questions, inspiration for writing. But that's so true. And I think even with the COVID, it was like a blessing in disguise in a way for writers. There's nothing else you could do.
Absolutely. Susan and I, my wife and I, absolutely loved lockdown.
Yeah.
We did, because we stay right on the flight path to Glasgow Airport, and every 2 minutes, another big aeroplane. So it was total silence, and it was a nice summer, so we're out in the garden. It was fantastic, and I started to paint again. I hadn't painted in 30 years. Did a whole series of paintings and wrote dozens of songs and wrote dozens of poems, just because you had the time. There was no pressure.
Right.
Actually, the money we saved was unbelievable, because we weren't going out anywhere. No petrol money for your car, no tickets to the cinema, no eating out. We saved up £10,000. £10,000 staying in the house.
Exactly. Most people talk so negatively about it, but there was a big silver lining. There really was.
Well, we really enjoyed it. We actually did. We both talk about how good it was.
Right.
That's strange, isn't it?
Bring it back. Bring it. No. I don't want it back.
No, definitely not.
No. Well, the other. Oh, I have to get to my two favorites. I'll tell you my favorite first.
Okay.
Love Can Be a Lost Cause.
Yes.
Oh God, my favorite. That to me is single material. That to me is hit material. And very surprised if that hasn't gotten any airplay.
So on Little Dove Hill, we mentioned Beggarstown.
Yeah.
And Beggarstown becomes the second album. And at the tail end of Beggarstown, I went out with a tape recorder and recorded a Glasgow street preacher. If you listen to the end of Beggarstown, you'll hear a guy saying, and they drove the great nails through his hands and through his feet. Right? One of these guys in a podium, I recorded it. And a wee tune plays. You'll hear a wee tune on a flute. Do, 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 do. If you listen, go back and you'll hear it. That then became Under a Burning Star on the third one. So all 3 albums are linked together. And the song that you just mentioned there, Love Can Be a Lost Cause, listen to the melody of it, because it became a Theory of Chaos on the track 4.
On that, yes.
Album 4.
Yes.
So
that's another track.
But nobody will ever pick up on any of this. It's just me playing a wee game, passing things along to myself. I think it kind of links all 4 albums together.
It does. It links. You're right. I think that's the thread, is universal through all 4 albums like that. I think that's a good, very unique way of doing that, and I think it gets people listening more for the details.
Yes.
When they find out about that too, but that's a wonderful song.
I'm only telling you these wee links. Nobody else will ever get it.
Right. I understand. Well, Moon, it's got to be a close second to Love Can Be a Lost Cause. I
Yeah.
like I like the horns, and it pulls on the heartstrings. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I like when you introduce the horns in throughout other albums, and you don't overuse them, but you use them just enough, I think, to
It's because
accentuate
it
it.
was because I was a school teacher, and I would go to the music department every day, and they would have the term they use is peripatetic. You're not fixed to one school. You can move from school to school. So you had peripatetic brass teachers,
Yeah.
brass tutors, and I got to know the guy. Chris Liddell's his name, and Chris played trumpet on that, and then he knew a trombone player. So, and you build up a network of musicians that you can work with.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I enjoy that. Another band that comes to mind is Kane Gang. I think you've been compared to them in some references. Another one. Well, moving on to 2 years later, Beggarstown, 2005. Uh, Do What You Do Best. Great song. I think that's my favorite on the album. It needs more exposure. This song definitely needs more exposure.
I'll
People
tell you
need
how
to
we
hear. People need to
tell you
hear this. Yeah.
how we get the title for Beggarstown. On a
Uh-huh.
Sunday morning, I would go up to the bars that we were talking about earlier, the Glasgow Barrowland, where Glasgow Barrowland is.
Yeah.
I used to go up there on a Sunday. I would I couldn't drive at that point. I was getting the bus, and I got off the bus, and a beggar, asked me for money. Hey mate, have you got any change? I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't have any change. And I walked further on. Another beggar, excuse me, mate, have you got any? No, sorry, I don't have any change. But 30 yards up the road, excuse me, mate, any loose change? I thought, what is this? Turned into a beggar's town. So I thought it was the start of key card machines, the money machines,
Yeah.
the ATM.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
the very, very start of that. And they used to be kept indoors, up beside Central Station, and you would swipe the card, and the doors would open, and you would go in, and the machines were there, right? So I swipes the door, the door opens, I go in, a guy comes in at my back, another guy comes in at my back with a light blue duffel coat on. So I put my card in the machine, put my number in, and he says, he's deaf, right? Or pretending to be deaf. I said, what? Sorry, I don't understand. And I did a sign language course. I said, I don't know what you mean. The machine starts to buzz because I haven't told it to. So I said, withdraw £10. So
Yeah.
£10 came out. He goes into his pocket and he brings out a tiny, tiny wee bit of paper, and I unwrap it, and it says on it, the £10 shop. So right? So my money came out. I said, the £10. He grabbed my £10 and ran away, stole my money. Just a con
Oh,
man,
yeah.
pretending to be deaf.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
You,
where the title came from. That morning, I thought this Glasgow is turned, and that's my pet name for Glasgow, Beggarstown.
Beggarstown. Well, I think that can have a universal feel for a lot of, big cities across the world. Yeah. Even here, if you go down to downtown Dallas, you run into a lot of them. Yeah. And also, I think Do What You Do Best, and then what you were talking about before with the song about not hiding what's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they kind of correlate, a little bit there.
Yeah,
Uh,
I never even thought of that, but I think you're right.
yeah.
Definitely.
But great messages for people though, for in general. The other track that I wanted to mention was Halfway There. It's a nice pop song with a great melody. Yeah.
Halfway There. Halfway There was written when they say you live 70 years, which
Yeah.
is 70. Well, I'd
Yeah.
written it when I was 35, so I was halfway there. So it was a message to myself.
Oh,
I'll be halfway there. By the time this message reaches you,
yeah.
I'll be halfway there, which was halfway to being 70, was the idea behind it. And I did the opposite on Leaving Without Saying Goodbye. There's a song called, it's a strange one, called Harbinger. I don't know if you know Harbinger.
Yes.
It starts with, we've got family that stay in Abu Dhabi, in the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates. And 5 times a day, you get the call to prayer, which is absolutely beautiful to hear. Glasgow in the 1930s and 40s, there used to be churches and chapels nearly every 100 yards. You could walk a church here and a church there and a church there, and all the church bells would all ring ding, 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 ding at the same time.
Right.
Well, in Abu Dhabi now, they've got mosques that play the call to prayer. They've got a mosque every 100 yards. They're all over the place. And they all play slightly out of sync. So when you hear the call to prayer, it's fantastic to hear. So I wanted to take on Harbinger. I wanted it to start with the sound of a call to prayer, but I didn't want to offend anybody's religion. So we faked it up with me singing I Am From the Future. And that's what the song is about. It starts with a clock. It's a speaking clock. At the third stroke, it will be 5:55. I don't know what the number is, but it's actually when Marty McFly gets in the DeLorean to go back in time.
Yes, Back to the Future. Yeah. Right.
November 1955. That's what. That's so. If anybody recognises that date, they'll know that the song is about time travel. I am from the future. I've come back to tell you all, and it's a wee echo back to being halfway there. The song that you mentioned earlier.
And I like the word.
They all interlink.
They do link, and I like the way you have a nod to the past, and then with the rotary phone too, on the new album, that's.
You want me to explain all that to you?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was at art school, and you get an art school grant. And by that time, I'd met Susan, and we bought a flat together, and we were really scrapped for cash. We're really struggling to pay the mortgage. And a guy called Kenny Anderson gave me the leg up. He let me join he was playing in a club band, a wedding band, where you're earning good money by playing at folks' weddings on a Friday and a Saturday night. So get friendly with Kenny. I was friendly with Kenny for 45 years, one of my best friends. We were rehearsing here on the Wednesday night, and on the Sunday night, out like a light, just died. He was found sitting on his bed with his computer on his lap, with his glasses still on, watched his computer, his heart giving out, just died. That was it. So it really affected me badly. And the whole album, and that's why it's the title, Leaving Without Saying Goodbye, because that's basically what he did. He left without saying goodbye. So it's a homage to him. In the very first track, it starts with the rotary phone, and the rotary number that it's dialing up is Kenny's birthday.
His birthday, wow. Yeah.
And the last song, it dials up the day that he died. One of it's the second last, the title track, Leaving Without Saying Goodbye, is Kenny's death, the day that he died, the date of his death. And the very, very last phone number that you hear is the speaking clock says at the third stroke, or sorry, it says you were called today at, and it reads out as if it's a telephone number. It's actually, old rotary phones used to have the alphabet on them too. So you right. And it spells out Hollow Horse. So if you know what the number is, it's spelling out Hollow Horse. And if you put it on the CD it goes back to the beginning again, play the first track again. So it just keeps, it'll forever link going round and round and round and round.
Right, full circle like that. Yeah.
It's a homage to Kenny. And the cover,
yes.
You have fire hydrants in America, the yellow ones.
Right.
You get these wee signs on the wall, and it tell the fireman where the fire hydrant is. There's usually numbers beside, about there and there. To take the numbers off, and it's a homage to Abbey Road, the cover of Abbey Road, where they've got Abbey Road and the
yes, they did that. Yes, that's right. That's right.
It's free advertising because these wee signs are all over Britain.
Yeah. Well, who did the putting the Hollow Horse in there, stencil that in, or was it done with the computer?
I did on the computer. I had the ideas for it. Yeah. And that one, I've actually got the cover of Escaping from a Submarine.
See, that was my next. I was going to ask you. Oh, you go ahead. Hold that up again, because I was going to ask you the figurines where they came from.
I've got them they're in the living room. My friend that I met at art school, actually I didn't meet him at art school. I met him when I was working in a shipyard. Roy Fitzsimmons is a sculptor. He built a box about that size with a wee submarine at the top. There's the wee submarine on the back. Got the submarine at the top and the wee sailors at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I asked if I could use it as the cover, and he actually gave me the box. And I'll photograph it for you, Greg, and I'll send you the whole thing, like you see it.
Oh,
It's
yeah. That would be great. That would be great. Well, I want you to keep that close by, because when we get to that coming up, I want to mention that on my impression on that. Just to know, going back to the second album, just to know that you're in the world, a nice addition of horns again in that track. Yeah, I like that.
I think that's about as beatly as I ever got.
Yeah, I can hear that.
You know, Penny Lane thing.
Yeah,
I still quite like that song as well. I think that's quite a nice one.
That's
out of the 5 or 6 that I like, that's one that I do like.
Okay, good. And then I really like the title, If Love Is the Answer, What Was the Question? You know, a unique way to look at that adage. You know?
That's what you try and do as a songwriter. You try and write a love song and you say, how can you possibly do this? How could you write another love song and do it in a different way? Well, back to that one again. It's after LV before E. It's trying to think of a different way of doing it. So it spells out the word love. O after LV before E is love. So it just gives you a different way of trying to write it. Another song that I think is worthy of mention is Love One Another, which is on Beggarstown. Love One Another is, you think that there's only 10 commandments, but there wasn't. There was 11, and the 11th commandment was love one another.
Wow.
Which I think is really nice.
Right.
And there's a quote from George Harrison. He says, you know, none of this matters. We're all just shadows on a wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of his last quote, one of the last things he ever said was, love one another.
Yes. Right. Right. There you go. I wonder, do you know the story behind that? Why was that one dropped? They didn't want an odd number of commandments, or
I have no idea.
Yeah.
That
should be the number one, I think.
Exactly. Absolutely. The world wouldn't be in the mess that it's in if we all just tried to love one another. And you see what's going on in the telly, it is utterly heartbreaking.
Yes, it really is.
And that's another one. Sorry, I keep coming back to this one again. The world is full of idiots.
Yes. That was one I like. That was one I like.
Absolutely full of idiots, and there's more of them than there are of us. That's the way it's multiplied, and they've taken over.
Right. And one is running for president here, and he's probably going to win.
He will win.
You know, and the thing is, you know, when I hear some of these people, MAGA, say, even if he's convicted, I'll still vote for him. And I'm like, do you realize how dysfunctional that sounds?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Totally. I predicted that he would get voted in.
Yeah.
Months and months before. I heard he was running, and I said to my wife, that's your next president of America. And she went, don't be ridiculous. Who's going to vote for him? But they did.
Right. And they will again. I know. It's just mind blowing. We're in the sad shape. We are in very, very sad.
We are. That's the reality, Greg. We're in the world is in a dreadful place. It really is.
It is. And that's why I go to music. You know, it gives me it calms me, you know, and it really does. It's a spiritual kind of a thing, you know, to me. It's and that's why I listen to music of the past, because so much today, and I'm not talking about what you do. There is good music out there, but a large majority of it is crap, you know, and so that's why I listen to music of the past. You know, it takes me to a better place, you know, happier place, you know. And
Somebody said, asked me, why does Hollowhurst get ignored? And I gave them a quote that I heard on BBC Radio 4 in the car a couple of months ago. And this is a fact. There is more music released this week from Friday to Friday than the whole of 1970.
yeah, I can believe it.
There's more music released in 1 week than there will be in an
In the whole
entire,
Whole year.
because it's so easy to record. Anybody, you can now do it on your computer. So you get folk who don't know how to play their instruments, don't know anything about the history of songwriting, don't know how to, but they can still all it does is it muddies the water,
Right.
where guys like myself don't get a chance to be heard because
Right.
there's so much crap out there.
Yeah, and don't even get started on artificial intelligence and what it can do. And
Oh no.
yeah. Oh
you,
man.
you just know it's a bad idea, and yet
Yeah.
we're sleepwalking into it. We're letting ourselves sleepwalking right into it when we know it's going to mess everything up.
Right. I think that's just across the board, in all facets of society. We're seeing that people just, sleepwalking. That's a good way to put it, and nobody wants to, this is something I'll probably leave this part out too, but it's time for a revolution. It's beyond, way past time. It's high time for revolution, but we won't do it because people are, subdued, and they're tranquilized by the consumerism, and just, I can have my new iPhone here and, check out all the Facebook messages and all the, social messages and all this, and not focus on what's really going on, And
it's the John Lennon quote: "Keep you doped with religion and sex and TV, and you think you're so clever and classless and free."
right, right.
And that was in 1970. You got it absolutely spot on.
Right.
But
yeah.
I've got a mobile phone that I don't use because I don't need to use it. I do not need to be on the phone 24 hours a day talking nonsense to my friends. I just don't need to do it.
No, you're right.
If I'm driving anywhere, I'll take the phone if I need to phone my wife. That's it.
Yeah, just for necessity. Yeah, but like you said, I mean, even that rotary dial, and I think in your other interview you did talking about on YouTube, a kid doesn't know how to use it. They don't.
That's right.
Even my son, they tried that in their class, and he didn't know either. He came and asked me about it.
That's our lifetime.
Yeah,
and our lifetime has changed completely.
Oh yeah, it really has.
When I was a kid, our TV was that size. The television was that size, and you had vertical hold and horizontal hold because it kept rolling. The edge had to get and turn the thing to make it slow down. You get these sort of the size of your wall in Glasgow. You're driving in somebody's window, and this enormous thing.
Right. It's to an excess. It's to an excess. Consumerism has just gone. Yeah. But you're right. Even the old TVs with the, when you did this, the rabbit ears, and then there was an art to that to get it, positioned just right, where you get a good picture. Today we're spoiled, and we're super spoiled. But then you just see the quality of life. Just it doesn't help the quality of life at all. No.
My grandfather was born in 1898. Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, he would have been 126.
Wow.
But I still think about him every day. I think about somebody who was born in 1898. So strange.
Yeah.
Wait, I'll tell you a story about the family that you might find interesting. My grandfather was born in South Africa. Okay. And his father, who would have been my great-grandfather, was killed in a mining accident. The lift shaft collapsed and down they went, and he was killed. So the woman and her children came back to Glasgow, stayed here about 5 years, then her, and she had 7 children en masse, moved to Canada. They moved to Lethbridge, Alberta, in Canada.
Oh, okay.
And the only one ever to return was my grandfather. My dad was born in Canada. They only stayed there for 10 months, and then they moved back to Glasgow. So when my dad was 70 and I was about 40, I decided that him and I would go to Lethbridge and find the house in which he was born and just do it, right? And try and to look for members of the family. We went to the library and asked for any information on the mother who brought the family there, right? We found that she'd been killed in a taxi accident that made the headlines of the Lethbridge News. Mrs. Little dies in taxi. It's totally weird. We found her grave. And it's really deeply affects you because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this woman. It's so strange. And then I started looking for, we flew from Vancouver, from Calgary to Vancouver. Have you ever been to Vancouver?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Gigantic place. Fantastic.
It's pretty.
And we knew that there was a guy called Jimmy Carpenter. I'm getting to a story here. We knew there was a guy called Jimmy Carpenter. And I said to my dad, who are you going to phone? I said, I don't know. Let's phone somebody and we'll see if we can fit. Who are you going to phone? Here's a phone box. Let's try it. So phoned up. We found him. It was 15 minutes away from where we were. He was knocked down by a bus and was in a vegetative state in a care home in Vancouver. So we go and visit him. And I had taken some photographs of him and his dad and his wee brother when they were tiny children. So you go in and the nurses are saying, why are you coming to see him? Because there's basically nobody there. He had a moment of clarity. He went, when I showed him the photograph, he started to talk. He went, that's me, that's my dad, that's my wee brother. And the nurse near her face hit the deck because they'd been treating him like a vegetable for all these years. Unbelievable. There was two other women called Annette and Sandra. So when I got home, I started to look for them on Ancestry.com. So 100 messages up, and eventually a woman in Iowa, in America, got in touch and said, are you Kenneth Leroy Little? And I said, yes, I am. And she gave me the details of the Kenneth Leroy Little that she was looking for. I said, I'm sorry to say, I'm not him. I'm not the one you're looking for. But it pleases me to know that there is another Kenneth Leroy Little somewhere in the world. Unfortunately, he won't be as good looking as me. But tell him I said hello. Tell him I said hello if you find. So she sent a message back and said, stop this self-flattery. I said, sent another message back, said, yes, I'm busy writing a book. It's called How to Admire Yourself in Mirrors, Shop Windows and Mucky Puddles. Right?
Yeah.
I ended up writing to this woman for 10 years in Iowa. Wait to hear this. This is the whole long-winded story to get to this. She was at Buddy Holly's last gig. Clearly, the night he died, she was in the audience.
She was there.
Isn't that unbelievable? That I had a direct link to somebody who'd been in the audience and witnessed Buddy Holly. Yeah. She said he was absolutely amazing.
Right.
That is great.
Wow, that is something. Yeah. I mean, you never know. Doing those searches and like you said, finding out your tree, what you're going to find out, And the other thing is I have to say about the connection between doing these interviews. You mentioned South Africa. Well, I've done 3 or 4 interviews with South Africans.
Right.
You familiar? Do you remember John Congus?
What's his name? Sorry?
John Congus. You remember? Now, this was in the early 70s. But he was from South Africa. Then he relocated to London, started his own studio there. But he released a couple of solo albums. He's in Austin, Texas. He's in Austin. I found out through one of his ex-bandmates. He said, check with John. And I said, Austin, really? I had no idea that he was there. And sure enough. But yeah, I've done 2 or 3 with recently with South Africa. And then you mentioned being from South Africa. That's yeah. So I find that was connected.
Have you got that interview up on your website?
Yes,
your,
I just it's the latest one.
right,
John Kander. Yeah,
I'll check
yeah,
that out when we finish.
yeah, yeah. So I wanted to get back real quick to, but thank you for that story. Thank you for that.
You can
I
edit
wanted
it out.
no, 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 no. That's what makes these so enjoyable. Kenny, really, it really does. Is the tangents sometimes and the
Yeah,
anecdotes. Yeah, that's what makes these. That's what I hear in the comments so much about
yeah.
is those stories. Maybe it's not even about music, but that's okay. Um, Now going to escaping from a submarine. Okay, you talked a little bit about the figurines. Now the back cover. Hold that up again. Hold up the back. Yeah. Was there any intention? Because at first glance, that kind of looks like a heart as well. Was that intentional?
No, no, it's
Yeah.
just it's as a school teacher, you teach kids to work with clay, and the first thing they make is it's called a pinch pot. You take a ball of clay and you put your thumb in and you pinch it.
Uh-huh.
It's just
Uh-huh.
two pinch pots put together, and it'll kind of look like a submarine. So it's actually a
Yeah.
lesson Roy Fitzsimmons did for his
Oh,
class, and he turned it
okay.
into a submarine.
Okay. Well, that was just maybe the way I saw it, but being red and all that.
With a
Well, so not intentional on that point. Well,
oh,
Run is a nice way to start off the album. Nice guitar, really nice guitar on that track, I have to say. I really enjoy that.
oh,
And then, did you have something to say about
no,
that track?
I can tell you a wee bit about where the idea came from for the whole thing, escaping from a
Yeah.
submarine. We've a family member who got pregnant, and when the baby was born, it had no lungs, and they said, "My goodness, it's just a freak of nature. It's one of these things that happen. So get pregnant again as quickly as you can, and you'll be okay." But the second baby was born with no lungs either, and it absolutely threw them into a tailspin, absolutely, totally, and utterly. And that's the idea I had for it. So at the start of the song, "Escaping from a Submarine," you hear two pings of the submarine. Ping.
Yes, yes.
So it's the two pings for the two wee kids that didn't make it.
Okay.
That's what I was saying right at the very start. That some of the songs are very dark, but you think it's just a wee pop song, but there's an underlying seriousness to the song, really. And escaping from the submarine, when I was a wee boy, would go to the Saturday morning. Sure, you had it in America as well. The Saturday morning pictures to see cowboy films and things, and they would show it was the "You Only Live Twice," the James Bond film,
Yes,
where
yes,
the
that's right.
submarine thing. And that's
I heard that. I knew I heard that. I knew I heard that.
that's why we take the James Bond theme at the end of the song to give it a wee bit of lightness.
Right. I knew I heard that. Yeah. Well, another band that I'm, especially in your lyrics that reminds me of is Trash Can Sinatra's, another
Yeah.
Scottish band. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Francis Reader. Yeah. I mean, he has some of the best lyrics, but you do as well, and it shows very thought provoking, and
Thank you.
yeah, so, but I mean, you come from a long lineage of great writers as well, and poets.
Yeah.
Scotland has really churned out quite the number.
That's the artists that I like the most are good lyricists like Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell for me is absolutely
Oh,
the cream of the crop.
yes, you're
She's the
right.
only person I can think of that rhymed moon and June and made it work.
Yeah.
In a highway service station over the month of June, I saw a picture of the Earth taken coming back home from the moon. It's from
Yes. Yeah,
it's from the album Hejira. It's "Refuge of the Roads" is the name of the song.
right.
Moon and June rhyming and but working absolutely perfectly. It's a great lyric. Great lyric. Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen.
All right. Right.
It's all the
Perfect.
stuff that I like.
Yeah. Well, set another track, Hours for the Taking. On this one, I get the kind of an Elvis Costello feel on that one.
Another great writer, another great lyricist.
Yeah, yeah, yes, he is. Yes, he is. I've enjoyed his. I didn't like so much when with the attractions, that earlier stuff. But then when he kind of branched out on his own, his solo material, I mean, it really showed what kind of a talent he really is. You know.
I've got his maybe first 4 or 5 albums, and I checked on Wikipedia. He's got about 37 records released.
Yeah,
37.
he's got a lot. Yeah. Oh, he's got a ton of them. He does. Well, another one I really like the chorus in Bluebell Wood, Angela's song. I
Yeah,
really enjoy that.
it's,
And
a,
then
it's a, another dark one, but I won't. It's actually about a murder. A
yes,
real murder.
yeah,
Uh,
I,
we stay not far away. It's called the Bluebell Wood, and there was a girl murdered, and it just again a song that just came landed on your lap. All you had to do was write it down.
oh wow. I wonder if the band the Bluebells, if that's where they got their name from Bluebell Wood.
It possibly could be.
I don't know. I don't know about that. Um, and Blindsided by Love. Nice rocker and really good lyrics on that track too.
Thank
You
you.
know, yeah. You
I don't
you
know if
never
you could say any of these songs.
you never know when.
Yeah,
You know. Under a Burning Star.
that's
Uh,
the wee tune that came
yeah,
from Beg.
yeah,
And I,
I really wish you would have developed this one into a full-fledged song. It's
I,
beautiful.
I copped out. It should have been Under a Burning Star. I put a baby in Beggarstown to
Uh-huh.
link it back to that. The rhyme should actually be Bethlehem. A baby in Bethlehem was born on a silent night, and the wind cried a requiem, because requiem and Bethlehem rhyme, where
Right.
Beggarstown doesn't rhyme.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, you're right. But I really wish you had developed that one into a full song, because it's beautiful, and then it's kind of when it ends, it's one of those. Uh, and then Escaping from a Submarine, which you talked about a little bit
Yeah.
about. Great lyrics, and then the James Bond, at the end of it. Yeah.
I like that actually lifting that theme. I was frightened that we would get done for plagiarism,
Uh-huh.
because we were lifting with it. We tried to disguise it, so we only used a wee tiny section of the actual theme.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the most memorable, I think. I think
Yeah,
that immediately you think of James Bond when you hear that. And then, one more I want to mention. Sometimes things get worse before they get better.
better.
Um, Great message. And then I like you letting go on that guitar solo. I
Yeah,
really like that. Yeah, yeah, that was nice.
yeah. Good. I like that one too.
Yeah. And then we moved to the first album in 15 or around 15 years.
Yeah,
Last year's Leaving Without Saying Goodbye. And you did talk about where the title came from.
yeah.
Go ahead if you want to add something else.
It's
So,
just why was there such a delay between the
oh, okay. Okay.
submarines? It's just 15 years, because I just absolutely lost faith. I thought, why are we making records here that nobody plays, nobody's interested, and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
We don't have anybody backing us to
Yes.
finance it all. It all comes out of my pocket. And I
Right.
thought, there's no point. And my wife gets seriously ill, and that sent me into a tailspin for a number of years. And then the COVID thing hit, and nobody could do anything for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And then when Kenny dying, the guy that played bass in the band, I told you earlier when he died, I thought that forced my hand. I thought I really need to do something. And it was the accumulation of the songs that I'd written for
Yeah.
the couple of years previously.
Well,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how long it took to record the album and the logistics involved, because you guys were spread out.
It took us 7 months.
Okay.
The the chap that plays drums is now working full time. I'm retired, obviously, so it's easy for me to go into the studio whenever I want. But Ian can't get time off his work. So it means we didn't have an opportunity to set up a drum kit and record live drums. So what we had to do was work remotely. So he would program the drums at home and send it in, and Brian, the engineer, would pick a kit that fitted particularly well with the track. The bass player that I was working with was the bass player who played on Beggarstown, the guy called Kevin Devlin, who he lives in Ireland, so he couldn't come over, so he had to record remotely. We had a guitar player who lives in Brighton, right away down in the south of England, so he had to record. So it was a different way of working. So instead of being a live band, gigging and rehearsing every week and writing the songs together and working up arrangements, it was all done in a completely different way, all done remotely, which I think it turned out really quite well. I would definitely work like that again.
Yeah, it's well produced. Well, all of your albums are well produced, and that's definitely a thank you to Brian.
Yes,
But
definitely.
yeah, especially like you said with the little snippets of sounds and
Sound effects.
that you put in there, the rotary and the other things.
There's a wee typewriter. It spells out O after L, V before E, full stop. Right. The drums start.
Right.
Old technology, just basically a nod and a wink to my past, that all these things are changing. Typewriters, right. Who works with a typewriter now?
Nobody does. Nobody. They even stopped teaching, how to write in my son's school.
Correct.
It's like, what? I mean, technologically based, right, that we can't do that. Yeah, that was an art form that I'm sad that we lost.
That used to be a skill.
Right.
Craftsmanship, the handwriting skills, and it's all going. You get
right.
With the family that stay in Abu Dhabi, the wee boy can barely write his name.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have to, because he can.
There you go.
He just speaks to the computer.
There you go.
And it just writes it for him. I think that's going to come back and bite humanity on the backside.
I think so. Really, I think if it hasn't already, it will. My son is 18. He's going to graduate, getting ready to graduate from high school. And me and my brother, his son is a couple of years younger. We talk, say, I hate to see what kind of world they're going to be in a few years. What's the world going to be like? I don't know. It's so sad. But I wanted to mention, I think these are the same songs that I mentioned that I emailed you on. But if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yes.
Enjoy that one.
That's one of my favorites. It's in 3/4. It's a waltz time. It's not. Try and count it. It's not even that. It's in 6/4.
6/4.
No, I think it is. It's very difficult to count the fours because it doesn't run in fours.
Yeah.
You hear?
Yeah. And then one that you mentioned earlier, The Theory of Chaos.
Yes.
Really enjoy that one. Yeah. And then the World is Full of Idiots. I'm not just bringing these up because you mentioned them, but I really like the guitar, and it reminds me a little bit of Icicle Works, I think, because of the same kind of guitar he uses, Ian, on that, And then I'll Help You Carry. Really, really nice.
That's one of my favorites. And we get Suzanne, and there was a girl at art school when I was at Glasgow School of Art. Only spoke to her one time in the cafe. I sat down beside her and we spent about an hour talking, and I didn't see her again. I knew who she was, but I didn't see her again. I didn't speak to her again. Then I was looking for a female singer because I knew that I wanted a female voice in that on that track. And I asked my friend, do you know any female singers? He says, well, I know a girl called Suzanne. And it turned out it was this very same girl. And she has got what we're talking about earlier, that life force, that energy. You just want to be in her company because she just it pours out of her. The way that Brian is, it just pours out of him.
Right.
So,
right.
And I think she sings it really, really well. And the other one that she sings on is What Was It About Her?
Well, and then one last one, May the Scales Be Fair. Nice pop song. And
It's a,
I like go ahead.
it's based on a painting by what's his name? Quentin Massey, I think is his name, the Renaissance painter.
Oh, okay.
What they used to do was it started with Henry VIII when they were pressing their coins up, making their money, their silver coins. He
Yeah.
decided to make them in copper instead of silver, and then coat them in silver.
Oh, okay.
The only way to know was to weigh the coins, so may the scales be fair and the weights be equal. But Henry VIII, what happened was, with people handling the coins, the silver would eventually rub off, and they had the picture of his face on it, and they used to call him Copper Nose because it was his wee nose would show the signs of the copper first.
Yeah, Copper Nose. That's where that comes from. Wow.
Henry VIII called Copper Nose. So that's what. So may the scales be fair. It's the balance of make sure you're not getting ripped off.
Yeah. Oh man, and that is very much apropos today too. That's another one of those you got to watch out everywhere.
When I
And
was
then
teaching,
the title track wanted the clarinet in it. I really like that, and it reminds me of Acker Bilk's "Stranger on the Shore." I told you that. That's what it harkens back to. Reminds me of. Yeah, and go ahead.
It's when I was teaching, there was a technical teacher, a wee old man said, "Have you ever seen this?" I said, "No, what is it?" He goes, "It's a wee poem.
Yeah.
It's called Happy." It turns out there was a wee girl who died in a minibus crash down in England in the 1980s. And when her family were clearing her room, they found that she'd written a wee poem called Happy. The time to be happy is now. Sorry, I'll try and let me get it right. The time to be happy is now. The place to be happy is here. The way to be happy is to make others so, which I thought was really lovely, right? And what I did was I incorporated that whole wee poem into the lyric of May the Scales Be Fair. Now is the time, here is the place, and I want to see the smile on your face.
Right.
So the idea again is quite a dark song.
Right.
But it's coming across. Brian thought it sounded a bit like Jet off a Band on the Run. The intro.
Yeah. I go back. Yeah, I can hear that. Yeah.
But it's got a dark undertone to it. It's actually the poem this wee girl had written, which I think is a lovely wee poem. I'll try and find the actual quote and I'll send it to you, along with a picture of Little Duff Hill.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. You talk about some of the dark undertones and the lyrics, but then there's always that hopeful, that positive message that you have too. That turning it around and say, love one another. And that's kind of a theme throughout. And we talked about the 11th commandment.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. So there's always that. So it's hopeful, like like I was saying, and positive. There's that positive feel too with some of the message that you're giving. So again, unfortunate that I didn't hear your material earlier, but I'm so glad that you did get in touch with me.
I'm surprised that they arrived so quickly when I sent them to you. Usually,
I am too. I wanted to go grab the postman, but he was already gone, and say, "Hey, take these back." It was supposed to take 2 weeks, not a week. But he was already gone. No, I was too. I was really surprised because I've gotten other packages and stuff that taken from there that have taken a lot longer.
I can't thank you enough for listening to them.
Sure.
I really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah. Did you want to mention, I said if we had time, and we can, about your teaching for 25 years. Any highlights not highlights, but anything that you think about these days that were very special about those times?
I was working in a shipyard. I served my time as an electrician in a shipyard. It was a military yard that built ships for the Royal Navy. Very dangerous place. Really, I was in fear of my life every day because things could fall on you. You could be working and a guy can be welding above you and all the sparks are falling down the back of it. Really dangerous place. I absolutely hated it. Absolutely, from the day one, I was utterly, utterly miserable. But my dad wouldn't let me leave because he came from the school of thought that to get a trade behind you would stand you in good stead for the rest of your life. You know that it's
Yeah.
that Glasgow mentality. You know, you have to get a trade. Absolutely hated it. And the day my time was out, when I would finish my apprenticeship, I took my boots off, threw them into the Clyde, took my overalls off, threw it into the yellow helmet, threw that into the Clyde, and I swung my tool bag around my neck, splash, and threw it into the Clyde. And then thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because I hadn't told anybody I was going to do this. So I went straight to a college called Langside College. So I went and studied at Langside College and got the qualifications to get into Glasgow School of Art. When you leave art school with an art degree, tick, 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 tick. Time goes by, you thought, what am I going to do? What do you do with an art degree? And I thought, I need to work. So I applied a second time and worked in Yarrows. That's the name of the shipyard. I worked in there for another 4 years. When I went back that first day, the person I met was the last person I'd seen when I'd left 11 years ago. And what he said, you were a long time in that toilet, as if I'd been hiding in the toilet for 11 years.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I cannot stay here a minute longer. And I applied to teacher training, and I get in, and I worked as a teacher in the same school for 25 years as a secondary school teacher. I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely adored it.
Yeah.
What I loved most about it was working with the kids. The kids were absolutely brilliant. That's the reward of the job, is working with the children.
Right.
But it is all consistent. It's another reason that I didn't do any recording for the 15-year interval, because it just absolutely takes over your entire life. Every other teacher in the school work from a book. They have a set curriculum.
Yeah.
They know exactly what they're going to teach every single day because they just follow the book. Art teachers don't. Every lesson that you teach comes out of your head. So you're continually thinking all the time. It really, and it does, it takes over your entire life. Then Susan became seriously ill and I couldn't cope. I was at the lowest I've ever been in my life. And it's 3 days before the Christmas holidays. And it's as if somebody went with a switch and switched it off. I could never go back to it. I just couldn't go. I couldn't go to work. And I went to see my doctor and he said, you are stressed so much. I'm going to sign you off. Going to give me a sick note to stay off of school. Right? I said, don't bother. I'm not going back.
Yeah.
And that's when I gave up teaching. And it was the best move I ever made. You don't realize how you think you're enjoying it, but you don't realize how stressful it is.
Yeah.
But the real joy was working with the kids.
Right. Well, have you had kids later on, they've grown up, come back to you and stayed in contact with you and told you how much you meant to them, and that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a troublesome wee boy that was causing chaos across the whole school. Yeah. Used to come and sit and eat his lunch with me. I'm a vegetarian, right? And he would have a burger every day, and I would call them. His name is Ryan Bennett. Ryan, is that you got another? I call them death burgers, right? So Ryan would eat death burgers. What do you want to do with your life? He goes, I want to go and live in America, right? Okay. I said, well, don't give up the dream. And then about 2 years ago, I got a message via Facebook from Ryan Bennett in America. He stays in Portland, Oregon, and he's got his own business, building houses. He's a carpenter. He sent me a photograph of himself carrying a big bit of wood with a big tool belt.
Yeah,
he was a real success. When the Serbian army invaded Kosovo during the Serbian War, I don't know if you remember, it was during the 90s. A Kosovan family were put up against the wall. The Serbian soldiers came in the middle of the night, put them up against the wall and said, if you are still here in the morning, we're going to shoot each and every one of you dead in front of this wall. So the whole family were migrants, and they walked from Serbia to Macedonia, where they got a plane as refugees and came and were housed in Renfrew, which is where I worked.
Right.
And the kids had to come to school. So there was 15 refugees, Kosovan refugees, who couldn't speak a single word of English, not a single word. And 1 year later, they sat their exams and passed their English exams, where you've got kids in Renfrew who've stayed here all their life, failed. It was absolutely, these kids were amazing. At the end of every lesson, you'd be sitting at your desk and you would look up and the kids would be there and they would say, thank you for teaching me today.
Yes, yes.
You never get that ever in your life. It was absolutely brilliant. And the knock-on effect that had for the ethos of the whole school, that the year that those kids were there were amazing. They're fantastic. And I keep in touch with them. Every Independence Day, Kosovan Independence Day, I send them a wee message and they send me pictures of their family and they send me photographs of their kids. So that is a joy for me. They were lovely kids.
That's great. That's wonderful. Really, Kenny.
There have been other kids like that you keep in touch.
Yeah, yeah. To know that you've had an impact and you made a difference in their lives. And that's the same with music, as well.
It's the impact that my primary school teacher had on my life with the wee ukulele.
Right.
I'd like to think that I'd contributed something. Now, I must tell you, I was not remotely interested in teaching the kids about art, although I was an art teacher. I was interested in teaching them to be better human beings. That was my job.
Right.
And I would often sit the kids around the table and just tell them stories.
Yeah.
For most of the period. Funny stories, things that you make up, but wee moral tales about bullying people or kids that smell, smelly kids getting bullied. I would tell them wee funny stories. And hopefully that would change the way that they thought about life, the way that they thought about the wee smelly boy and things like that. That's what my job was, to make the kids better human beings, but teach them art at the same time. That's what I tried to do.
Well, I think you had your priorities in the right place. I definitely do. Any teacher, I think, should do that first, and then the actual academics is second. Yeah,
I think so. I do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you knew that going into, and just from your whole life experience,
exactly,
led you to that. So you knew.
Very few art teachers, or very few teachers, had worked in a shipyard for 9 years.
Right.
Being in that hard environment, it really was hard, but it was funny as well.
Right.
Some of the characters that I met were absolutely fantastic. There's two painters, Willie Bruce and Bob Starrett. Bob Starrett's still alive. Willie Bruce is dead, but Starrett was fantastic. He was so funny, just hilarious. And I decided, wanting to be Brian's friend, I wanted to hang about with these guys. So I wasn't interested in being an electrician. I would just hang about with the painters because they were ship painters. Brilliant. It's a whole other conversation we can have another day, Greg. I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, I would like that. I would like that, Kenny.
You would like it?
I was like, well, I really enjoyed this. Do send me a couple of those, like you said, the pictures. And
yes, I will do.
Do that when you get a chance to. And
definitely, I'll do it now.
And let's keep in touch, Kenny.
Okay.
I do want to hear all that's going on and any new developments.
Okay. Thank you.
So that definitely. And I will too. Keep in touch.
Okay.
And thank you so much again, Kenny. And
thanks to you. I'm in your debt. Absolutely. Thank you. I'll speak to you again soon.
All right, we will. Thank you, Ken. All right.
Okay. That's
all right. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.